So I am Michaela Collins. I'm the Volunteer Generation Fund Program Officer with Volunteer New Hampshire.
My name is Emily Planchet. I'm a program officer with Volunteer New Hampshire, as you can see. I work mostly with our Americorps programs, and we'll talk about that in the presentation. And that is why I'm here today.
All right, so we are going to go ahead and jump into a little presentation about the resources that Volunteer New Hampshire offers. So to start out, this is our mission: engaging New Hampshire communities to solve local challenges through volunteerism. And so the work that we do related to that mission falls into a couple of different categories, and we'll dive into each of them throughout the presentation. But we connect volunteers with service opportunities primarily through Get Connected. We celebrate outstanding volunteer contributions primarily through the Spirit of New Hampshire Awards. We provide resources to both volunteers and volunteer managers, working to address community needs in a variety of different ways. And we also are the State Service Commission for New Hampshire, so we steward AmeriCorps resources to tackle challenges right here in New Hampshire. And to talk about that, we have Emily.
Yes, Americorps is my bread and butter, so I love talking about it. And if, as I'm talking, if anyone has any questions or they want to learn more about something, just let me know, and we can always connect after as well. But so just generally, Americorps is a national service program. So it's when we say Americorps, we sometimes mean the federal office, the federal agency, but also it's also a program. So essentially, the federal agency Americorps provides grants to different programs across the country. In New Hampshire specifically, they provide funds to us, Volunteer New Hampshire, as the State Service Commission, and through us, we provide subgrants to different organizations with different focus areas for Americorps State specifically. But there are also different types of Americorps programs, and I'm just going to talk super quickly about each of them, and more specifically just for the possible ways that you could benefit from Americorps resources. I'm sure your organizations are kind of in different places, different capacities. So it will hopefully something there might be interesting to you. So the first thing that you can learn about Americorps, there are three essential Americorps programs. You have Americorps State, you have Americorps Vista, and then you have Americorps Seniors. So Americorps State is a program that different organizations can apply for to create an Americorps program, and these have members that essentially do direct service activities. So for example, you can see in the picture on the right here, these are three of some Americorps State programs that we have in New Hampshire specifically. For example, Americorps Victim Assistance Program. This is a group of 12 members that are placed throughout the state, and they focus on supporting survivors of domestic and sexual violence. So they're typically placed in like police stations and domestic violence shelters, and they do things like work with financial literacy, and they'll answer the hotline, things like that. So Americorps State members do direct service activities, so they're typically working directly with the beneficiaries. The thing about Americorps State is that they're in large cohorts. So in New Hampshire, we ask that all Americorps programs have at least 10 members. The 10 members can be placed in one site, one organization, or they can be placed at multiple host sites. And I say this because if, for example, you in your organization would like a member to do some kind of help, like you have something that you'd really like an Americorps member to work with, you can look at the Americorps programs that are already funded in New Hampshire, and you can potentially become a host site. So if you just are looking for one member, you can contact the Americorps program that seems like it might match with whatever your program does, or your organization does, and request to see if you can get an Americorps member to come to your site as a host site. It's different it's a different process for each program, so you'd have to look. But if you are looking at our website, volunteernh.org, and you find a program that might match what your organization already does, and you'd like to see if you can get an Americorps member, feel free to reach out to the contact that's listed on the website, or you can connect with us and we can connect you. So that's Americorps State. If your organization has a project that you would want more than one member to help with, so say you have a larger project, or you want to create a new program, or you have an idea and you'd like to create an initiative, and you could have 10 or more members doing the same thing, you can also apply to Volunteer New Hampshire to create an Americorps program. And we run 2 different grant cycles throughout the year. So one is during the fall and one is during the spring. But if that's something of interest to you, before you would apply for an Americorps program, we do require that you would apply for an Americorps planning grant. So that's a grant that you would spend a year. We'd essentially pay for staff time for you to spend a year developing a potential Americorps program. So you could find different sites, you can decide Americorps activities, things like that. So you could possibly become an Americorps State host site or an Americorps State program. So yes, and those are all, once again, a program that provides direct service activities. Next, you have Americorps Vista, which stands for Volunteers in Service to America. Now, this is an Americorps program that places sort of members in 1s and 2s into different organizations throughout the state. And these members do what's called indirect service activities. So things that would improve the sustainability or the capacity of the organization in which they're placed at. So that could be things like fundraising, development, event planning, creating policies, really anything like that. It also has to somehow relate to poverty as well. I think there are probably some organizations on this call that have had Vistas in the past. I think First has Vistas, and then yes, Families in Transition had Vistas as well. So if you're sitting there and thinking, hey, it would be, we have something, our organization could really use someone to like really kickstart our development or our fundraising, and you have like a specific year-long, 2-year-long project, well, year-long project, and you'd really like someone to work on it, you might think about asking for an Americorps Vista. Volunteer New Hampshire does not, we don't control that process. Like we can't give out Americorps Vistas like we could Americorps State grants, but we can connect you with the people that do. So Americorps State direct, Americorps Vista indirect service, and then you have Americorps Seniors. There are 3 prongs to Americorps Seniors, and that is a program where all members must be 55 years or older. So if you on this call are 55 years or older, you can join Americorps Seniors if you'd like. Or you could, we won't talk about the other 2, but one of the ones that is sort of relevant to your organization would be Americorps RSVP, which stands for I've forgotten, but it's Retired Senior Volunteer Program. Got it. But essentially, that's very similar to Americorps State, where you could actually request for RSVP members to be placed at your host site to just do some kind of activity. It could be anything. Like at Volunteer New Hampshire, we had for a number of years a Americorps Seniors volunteer who came and just did data entry for us. Like we had a giant spreadsheet. We had a bunch of different spreadsheets of every donor that had ever donated to us, and her project was just to take all those and put it into one master spreadsheet. So if that sounds like something that maybe you could use, we could also connect you with those people as well, because that's also not something that we control. And then sort of finally, you have Americorps NCCC. So if your organization has a very large project that would take possibly 6 to 8 weeks to do, and typically has something to do with like if it's disaster related, with infrastructure improvement, weatherization, urban rural development, something like that, and it's a project that could take possibly 6 to 8 weeks to do, you can actually request to have an NCCC Americorps team come, and they'll do the project for you. So Americorps NCCC is a group of 10-ish members who travel across a region. It's a very large region. And then they just do different projects for organizations that submit concept papers. So for example, we had the Squam Lakes Association had during COVID, they typically have Americorps State members do trail work. But because COVID sort of disrupted everyone's plans, they had a lot of trails that weren't improved, but they needed to be improved. So they just submitted a concept paper to Americorps NCCC. The team came, they spent their 6 to 8 weeks, and they did it. The thing about NCCC though is that they do require that you provide them with like the materials to do the project, some kind of lodging for them. It doesn't have to be like a hotel. It could be like a church basement. And then like either meals or a space to a kitchen. So those are sort of the Americorps resources that you might be able to take advantage of. And then finally, we do have, throughout the year, we have days of service with our Americorps members, and we typically like to do some kind of service project, you know, for a couple hours, half a day. So if your organization has a super small project that you just want like 5 or 6 people to be able to do or more, you know, be on the lookout or let us know, and then we can always throw it out to our members to be like, hey, do you want to do a service project here? So I think that is it. I know that's a lot of information, so if you have any questions, please let me know.
We at Volunteer New Hampshire receive volunteer generation funding, which is awarded through Americorps, just like the Americorps program funding is. But the purpose is very different. So instead of supporting Americorps programs and Americorps members, the purpose of VGF is to support organizations in their efforts to recruit, manage, and support volunteers. And so essentially the goal of any VGF project is going to be to grow the capacity of the volunteer program. And so listed here, we have a variety of ways that Volunteer New Hampshire is engaged in this work, and we are going to dig into those a little bit. So get connected. Hopefully you're already familiar with this, but if you're not, today is as good a day as any to get involved here. So it's totally free to use. It's a volunteer matching website. Looks a little bit like a Craigslist or something like that, where nonprofits go in and create an account where they can then post volunteer opportunities, and then potential volunteers can search through those opportunities to find something that appeals to them, and then get in touch with the volunteer manager either directly through the site, or if you put contact information, email or phone number, they can reach out that way as well. So there's a screenshot of what it looks like. So this is what the opportunities side of things looks like. We have a guide to using Get Connected, which I've linked in the slide here, and I'll include in the notes as well. But so it walks you through how to register your nonprofit, how to create an opportunity, all of that. It's fairly straightforward, but we are also available to answer your questions if you run into any as you go. And then we also just have some numbers up here to show that this is a pretty widely used site. We have almost 800 nonprofits that are already registered in the system, and more than 15,000 people who are registered as potential volunteers. So access to quite a lot of people through this system. So another piece of the work that we do at Volunteer New Hampshire is more specifically tied to the volunteer generation funding, is a cohort, which some of the people on the call are participants of right now. So we have a cohort running currently with 9 to 12-month grants ranging from $7,500 to $30,000. And so in addition to the funding, they also receive some quarterly training and collaboration opportunities. And funny that Katie is here because I put up as an example the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central New Hampshire, their goal statement and activities, just as an example of what this looks like if you think you might be interested in applying in the future. This is an example of what a project could look like. So the Boys and Girls Club, their goal is to help hundreds of youth graduate from high school prepared for the next step, serve as engaged citizens, and adopt healthy lifestyles. And the way that they are making that happen through this grant is to create and deliver, number one, Boys and Girls Club policies and practices training for new volunteers, and number two, volunteer management training for site directors. So that is the cohort. It's a little bit more intensive, and it's a pretty long term, a year or almost a year. But we also just this year, just very recently actually, for the first time, opened up a new opportunity of mini grants. So this is smaller scale. It's $1,000 to $4,000 for just one specific purchase or activity. So hosting a training for your volunteers or hiring a consultant to do a specific project that will benefit your volunteer program, purchasing volunteer management software, something like that. And then we just finished up that process, and there will be about 5 months for the recipients to spend that funding. And this was a pretty popular, we received a lot of applications for this. So we are planning to identify some new funding sources so that we can expand the pool of funds that we have allocated for this and open up another opportunity, hopefully this fall. But so here's an example of one of the projects that was funded, the Lebanon Opera House. Their goal is to attract a diverse group of Upper Valley residents to volunteer with the Lebanon Opera House. We also want to ensure that all populations in the Upper Valley are aware of our volunteer program benefits. And so the activity that they are doing to accomplish that is hiring a marketing consultant to design a volunteer brochure and banner. Does anybody have questions about what this looks like or the distinction between the two opportunities? All right. So looking at our website, something that we've incorporated in the past year or so, especially since we started to have some more resources that we created over the course of the pandemic when everything has been virtual. That means that a lot of things have been recorded. And so we decided that it would be a good idea to have a central location on our website that we're calling the Volunteer Resource Center, where all of this is stored. And so I can show you, this is the page, the landing page. And if you click on Tools and Best Practices, that brings you to this searchable resource database. So you can check boxes for the type of resource that you're looking for, or the topic, or who you are. If you're an Americorps member, maybe certain resources are more applicable than others, and so those would pop up, for example. And you can also type in a keyword. So if you type in get connected, for example, then a couple of things would pop up, including this how to use get connected guide, which is what I showed earlier. So this is something that we're continuing to add new resources to all the time. We also have all of our conference sessions, which I'll talk about a little bit afterward. But so this is an exciting addition to our website recently. I see a question in the chat. If you already have a mini grant in progress, can you apply for a VGF cohort grant? That is a great question. Yes, we did design or we're hoping to sort of design the opportunities so that they can go hand in hand. So maybe an organization starts out with a mini grant, that's what they have the capacity for at the time, and then through the mini grant and through working with us during that period of time, we hope that we'll be able to help get those recipients to a place where they are able to take on a larger scale cohort grant as well. So that's what we intended. So it is definitely allowed. Okay, I think that covers that. Okay, so our two main events that Volunteer New Hampshire hosts, we have the Governor's Conference on Volunteerism, which is typically in May every year. For the past couple of years, it has been entirely virtual, which has also meant that we are able to offer completely free participation in the event, which is also the case again this year for the third year. And so the dates this year are going to be Tuesday, May 10th through Thursday, May 12th. And we have 18 live sessions lined up, including, or also including some pre-recorded content in addition to those live sessions. And just to give a little bit more context, if you're not familiar with the conference, it is focused primarily toward volunteer managers as the core audience, but we also do have a lot of Americorps members, as well as staff or board members of nonprofits that are not necessarily directly involved in volunteerism, as well as some business employees or business owners who are interested in sort of the corporate social responsibility side of things. So the core of the conference is focused around volunteerism and volunteer management, but we have sessions on everything from just professional development to diversity, equity, inclusion, a whole range of interesting content. So definitely applicable to a wide variety of people. The conference will include a welcome and keynote address, and during that time, we'll also be presenting the Outstanding Volunteer Manager of the Year, potentially presented by Governor Sununu. And that is an opportunity that we are currently accepting nominations for until 1 week. So the deadline is next Wednesday, March 30th. So there is still time if you want to get in a nomination for that. And the conference will also incorporate some networking opportunities, and it will close out with a trivia game about the conference and an opportunity to reflect on what you have learned throughout the course of the conference as well. And so, as I mentioned, in the volunteer resource section of our website, you can view all of the 2020 and 2021 session recordings from the conference. Any questions about the conference? Looks like nothing in the chat. Okay, so the Spirit of New Hampshire Awards is our other main event. This is our primary way of providing recognition for volunteers and organizations with volunteer initiatives. So there are a couple of different types of awards. The top award is the Spirit of New Hampshire Award. So that's a surprise. It goes to one individual or group that is selected by a review committee. There's also a People's Choice Award for the past couple of years. So that one we open up voting for a couple weeks before the event, and then announce the People's Choice Award recipient live during the event. So that one's kind of fun. And then aside from that, everyone who is nominated, who is eligible for an award, receives either a volunteer service award if they're an individual or a group, or a volunteer champion award if they are a nonprofit public service organization or a business. And then for each category, so we have adult, youth, things like that as categories. There is an outstanding award recipient chosen for each category, and they receive a little bit of extra recognition for their award. And the way that we have been recognizing recipients over the past couple of years is by interviewing all of them that we can, which is almost all of them. We've had good success with that. So we record interviews with the award recipient and their nominator or someone that they've volunteered alongside who can talk about them. And then we share those interviews on our website as highlights during the event. And we host a live event either in person or over the past 2 years. It's been a live streamed event, mostly virtual, where people can tune in and watch category highlights, live interviews, and learn about who the top award recipients are, since that is a surprise.